Good sticks, everyone. Welcome to the Captain Avalanche Fancast, your unofficial source for all things Colorado Avalanche hockey and more from a fan perspective. Hosted by me, Captain Avalanche Corey, and our local island expert, Dom. Now, we're no insiders. We're not inside the locker room face-to-face with our favorite players, but we hope to create a relatable and welcoming environment because we're just like all of you listening. Fans. Fans with a deep passion for the game of hockey, and in this case, the Colorado Avalanche. I'm thinking we have 2 episodes left at max. I think by the end of next week, we will have likely crowned a champion to the Stanley Cup. Although the spacing of these games are terrible. Tomorrow is just only game 4 because they had to make it 3 days in between. 3 days! I don't know why, but I mean, I understand the rest, right? I understand if it was 3 days between Florida and Edmonton, or Edmonton and Florida, but they're still in Florida. It should have been they play on Monday, break on Tuesday, play again tonight. But no. What?
Yeah, I was going to say geography, but again, it's like you should have 3 days between games 2 and 3 and games 4 and 5, and from then on when you're switching cities every game. But when you're playing in the same city, those are the times to have the game every other night. So, Corey, I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, it's fine. I know we've been counting down these episodes for a while, everybody. It's because even though we're so far into this season, Dom and I are still figuring it out every single day. As some of you so politely pointed out to me, there was an episode a few episodes ago where we had some audio issues with Dom. We should not have those going forward. And I apologize. That's on me. But again, we're still figuring it out. And next season, it's going to be great. There'll probably be 0 issues ever and everything will be perfect all the time. But for now, we're still flying by the seat of our pants, figuring it out as we go. But it's been a hell of a lot of fun the whole freaking way. But my thought is next week, we'll probably have a Stanley Cup champion. If not, we'll be close to it. We'll update you on anything else that is happening or that is going to happen. And then the week following, which will be, it looks like June 25th when we record, we will likely sign off right before free agency. Although free agency is interesting enough, we might do one final episode as we transition into the off season, but otherwise we'll always keep you updated on our social media accounts that I totally do a good job of managing. So if you want some interesting Avs news as it happens, go check that out over there. But that's all I have to say on that, because we do have a bunch of Avs news tonight. But before I hop right into it, Dom, did you have anything you wanted to say before I get you into our Avalanche news roundup?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this. Next week, we'd be recording sometime middle of the week in the 18th, 19th range. But the week after, actually, the draft is on June 27th and 28th. So perhaps we don't bring you an episode on the 25th. We wait till the first week of July, have plenty of news with the end of the league year, some time to reflect on our first season as we have been slowly but surely, Corey, and be able to assess the draft for the Sharks, the Avalanche, and any of the teams around the league to see if there are some clear winners and losers right off the bat with what their future prospects look like.
Not a bad thought, Dom. Not a bad thought. That actually would make a lot of sense because in 2 weeks, if we have not yet crowned the Stanley Cup champion and we're going to a Game 7, it's worth the wait. And you're right, we can get some draft news in there and have a fully complete episode. And perhaps we wait till July 1st to sneak in some of those free agent signings for that day. So we might make y'all wait just a little bit longer for your precious Captain Avalanche episodes. But we shockingly have quite a bit, in my opinion, to talk about this week in terms of the Avalanche, in terms of the Stanley Cup Finals. So lots happening right now. I think it's been fun. Yeah, I think we'll roll right into it. This is your
go. Oh, I was just gonna be like, yeah, positive, excitement. I mean, I know you're gonna take whatever order, but I would just like to say, however bored we were by the conference finals, this has been a
Yeah.
thoroughly enjoyable Stanley Cup final, and I hate that I have to like watch it on replay from being on vacation. But I'm back, folks. I'm gonna be watching it end to end every minute, so I'll be able to contribute more in the coming episodes as well, however many they be, whenever they may be, as far as the Stanley Cup Final is concerned. But anyway, Captain, take us away.
Oh, don't you worry, Dom. We'll make fun of you here in a little bit. Anyway, it's time for your Avalanche News Roundup. Big Cock Brock resigns. As I previously mentioned, the best possible scenario, at least in my opinion, for the Avalanche at the 2C position would be for Brock Nelson to stick around. Well, he signed a 3-year, $22.5 million contract with an average annual value of $7.5 million, making him the second highest paid forward behind only Nathan MacKinnon. Included in this contract is a no-trade clause for the first 2 years and then a modified no-trade clause for the third year. Now, before I go forward talking more about the good old Big Cock Brock, I want to define what AAV, average annual value, means and what no trade clauses are and maybe the difference between them and like no movement clauses. So, Dom, if I miss anything, please add it in, or if you have something else to add, by all means do. But average annual value, as it sounds like, is just the value of a contract spread out over the course of its lifespan. So, obviously, for Big Cock Brock, if you take $22.5 million, you divide it by 3, you get an average value of $7.5 million for each of those 3 years. However, that's just the average value every year, and not all contracts actually function off of that value when calculating how much cap space you have every year. For example, there are contracts for players that are front-loaded or back-loaded, meaning they get paid more in either their first year or their last year of the contract to try and help the team save on that cap space. Now, a contract can have a lower or higher average annual value depending on the number of years in the contract, as well as the incentives inside of that being signing bonuses, as well as no trade or no movement clauses. If you throw those in, players are usually willing to bring their number down a little bit, as well as if the contract is longer, you can usually get away with a lower value over the contract's lifespan. Dom, anything else to add with average annual value?
Yeah, the only thing I would say is for the average annual value, something you might see in other leagues, and you see this particularly in the NFL, where teams will restructure contracts and just keep pushing the money down the line or moving it up, changing guaranteed money type of things. If I understand correctly, there is a limit to how much you can modify the salary between your first year and your last year. There's like a certain percentage point. I don't know the exact number, but it can only have so much variance. So a team can just say, oh, we're going to give them an average of 8 million, but this first season only 2 million. So there is a limit so that teams cannot manipulate the cap so much. So there's that asterisk with it. But overall, Corey, I think you perfectly explained average annual value.
Thank you. I actually had to look up more about no trade clauses versus no movement clauses because I couldn't remember what the primary differences were. Well, everybody, when a player signs a contract, they could possibly be given a no trade clause or a no movement clause. We'll start with a no trade clause because it's what Brock Nelson has. Now, all a no trade clause is exactly as the name implies. A player cannot be traded without their permission or consent to any other team. And that's any team if it is a full no trade clause, which Brock Nelson has for the first 2 years of his contract. In his third year, he has what's called a modified no trade clause, which has a 15-team no trade list, meaning if the Avalanche wanted to trade Brock Nelson to any of those 15 teams, he would have to give his permission to the team to do so. But if they wanted to trade him to a team that was not on the list, he would have no control over that whatsoever. So Brock Nelson seems to have wanted to keep himself rooted here in Colorado, and rightfully so, and we'll talk more about it here in a little bit. Now, if you do have, for example, now a no movement clause, that means that player cannot be waived or sent down to the minors or traded without approval. So no movement clauses are a little bit more powerful, because if you only have a no trade clause, you can actually still be put on waivers and then claimed by another team. Although usually a player with a no trade clause can be a little bit more valuable. You tend to not see those players go on waivers unless a team is desperately trying to rid themselves of that player. But the most powerful protection that you can have is a no movement clause, which Nathan MacKinnon, of course, has. Why would the Avalanche ever move him for any kind of reason? And a matter of fact, a lot of the Avalanche's players have some sort of modified no trade clause, although most of them are pretty small as a matter of fact. So that is kind of the main things you will see in contracts. There are a few rare and weird exceptions that you'll see from time to time, but those are the big ones. Tom, anything to add?
Oh, I think that's a good point about the no movement clause, because we've seen this before, especially when you see these older players who get those 7-6 year contracts when they're in their early to mid 30s and maybe are a little overpaid, and teams are saying we might have to eat that on the back end. Well, if those final years aren't fully guaranteed, even if there's a no trade clause, the no movement clause means a team can still dodge that salary as their performance drops off, especially if it drops off sooner than expected. And so that's the added value I think you highlighted there, Corey.
Thank you, Dom. Now, with that value that the Avalanche had paid for Brock Nelson, some people think that this is a lot for Big Cock Brock. I disagree. The Avalanche didn't want to pay up for Nazem Kadri when the time came, and that put them in a limbo for the next 3 seasons or so, and no one enjoyed that experience, and we've all talked about it ad nauseum. Despite his age, Big Cock Brock has not had diminishing returns as he's gotten older and has continued to be reliable for between 25 and 30 goals and 55 and 60 points per year. I know I said this about an unproven Casey Middlestat, but I was younger and less wise than I am now. But your 2C problem is truly solved for the time being, and you don't have to worry about it until the end of Brock Nelson's career, essentially. Your top 6 is beautifully rounded out now, so all you need to worry about is plugging holes and don't need to continue to ship out assets to acquire, or get rid of, in the case of Johansson, a 2C. The Avalanche have stopped trying to find the cheap solution and have finally opted for a more permanent one. Same as what they did with their goaltending. Now, the Avalanche have a fantastic reputation for taking undervalued or underperforming players and bringing out the best in them. Val Nichushkin, Lehkonen, and Drouin are great examples, but it's not always perfect, as we've seen with Middlestat and Johansson. Is there inherent risk? No, we're not cooking. Risk with Brock. Thank you, Tom. Oh my gosh. I swear, we try so hard. Is there inherent risk with Nelson? Of course there is. There is with every single player in the National Hockey League, especially bringing in ones who have spent their 10,000-year career with one team and system. I do truly believe, along with most everyone else, that a full training camp and year with this team will do wonders for the chemistry with some of the recent acquisitions that stay. Does this signing put the Avalanche in more of a cap crunch now that in most of their... Does this put the Avalanche in more of a cap crunch now that most of their money has gone to one guy? Sure, yeah, this year it does. But that's for the 1 year while Necas is on a team-friendly deal, and the cap will continue to rise dramatically for the next several seasons. To go with a bit of a cop-out answer, I believe that the Avalanche will figure it the hell out, to be frank. And it's only an overpay if you give the Islanders all those assets just for Nelson to be a rental in a year that you greatly underperformed expectations. Now he's back, so as I said before, it makes losing those things, such as Callum Ritchie in that first rounder, way less painful. My point here, and some other Avalanche content creators, or my final point here, sorry, and some other Avalanche content creators have addressed this and sharing the same sentiment that I am about to share. And Dom, let me know if you feel the same, that there was a post and it wasn't meant to feel one way or the other, but it just presented the fact that Mikko Rantanen is signed for $12 million, and the Avalanche signed Nelson and Charlie Coyle for a little over that amount, and essentially asking how we feel about this. I didn't look at the comment sections of this post, but I can only imagine how it looks. But my overall response to this is, yeah.
Oh, yeah!
Instead of paying one dude, albeit an incredibly deserving and talented one, $12 million, we spread it out to improve the Avalanche's center depth. I fail to see how that's a negative. Yes, Mikko Rantanen proved to be a factor that sent the Avalanche packing, but he wasn't the overall difference maker for Dallas. I'm thrilled for Brock to be back, and I'm currently working on acquiring the Big Cock Brock jersey, which is harder than you may think. But Dom, what do you think? Mikko Rantanen could have cost $12 million, but instead the Avalanche gave it to two centers.
So I see the school of thought and why it's just like you have this top end talent, you have this goal scoring. What did you need? You needed more goal scoring. You needed Mikko Rantanen. I understand why that argument is out there. Two players, you have to fill a roster. And that's the problem the Avs are going to find themselves with, looking at, like you said, next year with only $1.2 million in cap space and still needing to get another 5 contracts in there. They're going to have to move somebody. But they would have had to move multiple somebodies probably if it was Mikko Rantanen. So they would have less players than they have now. And they would still be dealing with a 2C issue because there is no way they'd be able to pay Brock Nelson. So that would be a serious issue. Do you really want to trade and have a superstar goal scoring talent at winger, or do you want to be able to fill out your roster and up your bottom line, be more consistent, be more competitive in the playoffs going forward? And I do think single players are star players are not enough to make a whole team. You do need to be able to roll 4 lines out there and have that depth scoring. But if you don't even have your 2C, that's not even depth. That's a serious top 6 problem. So I believe the Avs are on the right side of this. I still believe that, Martin Necas on a $6.5 million, very team friendly. You guys will have plenty of cap space to figure that one out next year. You'll still be able to figure out the issues with defense and stuff, but you do have to move a contract. And so Miles Wood's only $2.5 million. He might be appealing, he might not be, but you got Charlie Coyle. You tried it. It might not have worked. I think Charlie Coyle is going to end up being starting the season somewhere else. And like you said, Corey, it's good to have all the right players in training camp. So I wouldn't be surprised to see the Avs try to trade him soon, early on after the 1st of July, and open up some cap space and get their 3C figured out early so they can start the season with that consistent roster without any questions. And so then you might ask, well, if they spent the money that way, why not Mikko Rantanen? And that my whole perspective I just explained, and someone could be like, Dominic, how does that make sense? And I'd be like, well, because you're paying $5.25 million for a third line center. That's a little too much. You need to get that number down a couple million, especially to fill out the rest of your roster. And he did bring value, but he was also a deadline acquisition type of thing. So to recoup some assets for him makes that a more reasonable deadline trade, a less impactful one. And you made the priority get. You kept the 2C. You kept Brock Nelson. He's 33. You got him for 3 years, so he will be 36. Either he finishes his career on that contract, or he's that much more likely to stay and take a hometown discount afterwards. You're paying him $7.5 million. By the time that contract's over, you could be paying him less than $3 million for any seasons he continues to play. So it seemed like the right choice to me. And again, we respect what Mikko Rantanen can and has done, but he is one player and he cannot put the entire team on his back. He would have an easier time doing that if he was a center, and he's not, which means he is inherently worth less money.
Well, everybody, Dom likes to spoil my upcoming notes. It's like you're looking at my fucking document right now, Dom. Who are you? Are you in my computer? Have you hacked into my mainframe, Dom? Are you a hacker? Are you sure you only studied aerospace engineering and not computer science and cybersecurity? It's like you're reading right off my page, Dom.
Nah, we've just been doing this long enough. I read your mind, but I'm sorry to take away from your notes.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It sets us up for future conversations really well, but you make a great point. And I mean, that's what I'm trying to get at here is with your top 6 fully flushed and rounded out, your goaltending completely solved into the future. I mean, that Avalanche's top 6 is still set for, I have Puckpedia pulled up right now. That Avalanche's top 6 is still set at the bare minimum through 2027, 2028, barring that Martin Necas resigns. We'll just assume for now, for the sake of ease, that he does. We'll assume that he does. That top 6 is set. So, I mean, with all that in mind, all you have to do is figure out how to round your bottom six. And I mean, you have several guys in your bottom six who are rounded out quite well also. I mean, you have Logan O'Connor locked up at a very good value, I think, for everything he brings to the team. You have Jack Drury, who will be an RFA next year, and I think they'd be smart to bring him back going forward. So, I mean, the nice part, really, what I'm trying to get at here, because I'm kind of going on a tangent, is that the Avalanche, all they need to do now is focus on plugging holes rather than trying to find those big pieces that they need to fully solidify their roster. Now all they need to do is like, oh, we need a guy here. Let's go get a guy here. And most of those guys are in their bottom six or their lower pairings in defense. I think that's a good problem to have, despite having only 1.8, 1.7 million or 1.2. I'm sorry, I misspoke. I think it's 1.2. Yeah, 1.2 in cap space. It's fine overall, I think, for what the Avs have going forward, frankly.
Yeah, and you said it's easier. We've talked about it. You can't build your core in free agency, and I think it was in the last episode I said, well, you can't build your team at the deadline for this season, but it's a possibility if you can retain those players that then you have a stable core for the next season, and you can't build your entire team that way. We've seen that in Nashville, but if you pick up a core piece here and there, a second line center that can become part of your core and be reliable and consistent, that solves a lot of problems. It's a lot easier to replace a third line winger and a third line center than it is to replace a second line center. It's a lot cheaper as well. You have a lot more options.
Yes.
Yeah, a lot more options. Yes. So I think the Avs are in the position that most cup contending teams are, and that's why teams move at the deadline and try to fill those weak points when they are in the hunt. And so they're going to be in a good position next year. A lot of teams, I will say, when you're talking about Martin Necas too, don't be surprised if he has his next extension signed by, let's say, August, September. The Avs would be prudent to start negotiating with him as early as possible to try to get him an extension and get it. The earlier, the cheaper it'll be.
Yep, exactly. Well, to kind of wrap up Nelson, another thing I wanted to say before concluding is that he wanted and wants to be here. He actually, back at the trade deadline, blocked a trade to Winnipeg, stating that the Avalanche and Colorado were where he wanted to go. And then it was revealed that he was going to be offered more out on the free agent market from other teams. And this is a free agent market where people will get overpaid, but Brock chose instead to stay in Colorado for less, although some people may not feel that way. He stated he wants to stay, and you get the sense hearing him talk about the team that he wants a shot at redemption in the playoffs because he believes this team can go further, and I believe that they can go further with him rather than without him. And I cannot wait to see the Nelson Landeskog-Nichushkin line in full action next season.
Well, yeah, and I think that's a huge thing too, is having that all figured out, that consistency, that chemistry. It's going to be much, much better than just the taste of it we saw. You can also not just with the players that are alongside him, but the system, since he did move so late in the season and adapting, it's gonna be worth that contract. And with the way the salary cap is moving, $7.5 million in a year or two's time is going to be a really, really great price for a 2C. So I think it works out well for all parties. Then I'm glad that he's happy and found a good place to stay, because we do love it out here in Colorado.
Yeah. And we were actually just talking about this, funnily enough, about the Broncos, because again, I'm not a big football guy, but I saw that we just got that gentleman from the Chargers whose name is escaping me. Do you remember his name?
J.K. Dobbins.
Thank you, J.K. Dobbins. And everybody's super excited about J.K. Dobbins. And he said that the Chargers didn't treat him that well, which is sad. And he said one of the reasons he came here was due to the fan base. And I just think a lot of Colorado sports fans are pretty great. And it sucks because I think sometimes we get a negative light shine on us for some reason. And I understand not everybody's as gracious, but I don't know. I think we're pretty fun. I think we're pretty cool across all of our sports teams. So we like it. We like to boogie. We like to have fun out here. We like to support. I think we love our athletes, though, jokes aside. Truly, I think the people of Colorado love their athletes and love their players on their various teams.
And they do. I think it can be very unforgiving. It can be a love-hate. We saw how badly the separation with Russell Wilson ended up being. So I think when you have a lot of passion and investment in your sports fan base, that means you can have a lot of love, and that love can turn to hate. So that's the other side of that coin that I think is true of any city. But you're right. Absolutely, out here in Colorado, especially with all the success recently, there's been a large influx of new sports fans as well who are really excited and learning and getting to know who these players are. And, I wondered, I mean, I know we're not talking football here, but they play in the same division. So if he really didn't like how he was treated by the Chargers, moving to a division rival seems like a great way to get back at them as well.
Yeah, we wouldn't know anything about that, would we, Tom? Nothing at all.
Not at all. Not at all fitting in with where our conversation started.
But Tom, why would you say Russell Wilson's name? Why would you say his name? They're gonna come for us, Tom. You can't say that name. It's blasphemous. What have you done? They're gonna find us, Tom. Oh God, I hear the rumbling now. All right. I don't want to go too far with this bit, or I'm gonna have to make a super big edit later in post, and I'll go full ham on it, and it'll take me an hour to do. But I was gonna fangirl for a second. I'm genuinely, like, notes aside, so excited for that second line. That second line's gonna fuck, dude. It's gonna be so good, because that line is just full of size, power, and goal scoring.
Well, and think about it. You've had your top line figured out for a while.
Oh, yeah.
You have your second line figured out, and you have a fourth line that you've been hyping up like all last season and how they gel together. You really just have one line to figure out. That's not a bad position to be in. Most people don't have their fourth line that figured out as well if they have their top six. So, Avs fans, this is a good place to be. There might not be a ton of money, but they will figure it out. I mean, your GM, Chris McFarland, right?
Yep.
He's been doing a great job over the last few years, and I see no reason why he won't be successful in having this team ready to go and ready to make a push for a cup next year.
That's the fucking hope, Dom. When you talked about the fourth line, and one of the big installments, and we talked about it already, is Logan O'Connor, and unfortunately, LOC is out. Now, LOC, it was reported by multiple outlets that Logan O'Connor has undergone successful hip surgery. What exactly the procedure was is kept under wraps, but he will be out for 5 to 6 months. While it is concerning, as this is the second hip surgery he's had in 2 years, I would hold concern until it proves to be an issue later, because it was revealed that the surgery he had a year ago was more of a band-aid and temporary solution to a larger issue, and this year's surgery was meant to fix it in a more permanent manner. It is tough, as he is, as I mentioned, one of the Avalanche's best bottom six players, and he's a very strong defensive forward. His timeline has him out until between mid-November and December, but not that he isn't a difference maker. If the Avalanche can get away with minimal injuries or recoveries starting the season, then perhaps they'll have a better start to help them have that better positioning in the division later down the line. But we certainly are wishing the mayor of Denver a speedy and proper recovery.
Well, a speedy and proper recovery, and just a thought here, LTIR. I mean, when we're talking about the cap space crunch, if it's going to be 5 or 6 months, the first 3 months of the season, the Avs can workshop, have that time to be able to bring on an extra contract and kick that can down the curb of figuring out how to make it all work by a couple of months. So while that is not good, and we don't want to see LOC be injured, and we hope he heals up okay with this surgery and that it goes better than the last one, it does open more possibilities, and where the cap crunch is that much less for the team if they do take advantage of that LTIR option.
Certainly so. Well, it's time for one of my favorite pieces of news this week. Although it's kind of old news at this point. But, I mean, we talked about it so harshly last week that we gotta talk about it this week. And that's Pete DeBoer is fired! I have no notes, just bullet points. I said, let's riff on this clown again. Well, Pete, you said it's either me or Ottinger, and guess who they chose? Womp motherfucking womp. You fool! You fool! What have you done, Mr. Pete DeBoer? Oh, that's just funny. It's funny. I think we all knew it was coming. I'm shocked it took that long, but I think it's because Jim Nill, and this is not my own idea, but I agree with it. I think Jim Nill wanted Pete DeBoer to have to stand up in front of the media and basically answer for his crimes, and he did. And he's like, cool, now that you've opened your big fat mouth, you can get the fuck out of my office. But Dom, let's be real here. Pete DeBoer likely will not be out of a job for long. But the problem is, all the head coaching positions for all the other teams have been filled. So where does he go? I doubt he would take an assistant coaching role. I would assume he only wants head coaching roles.
So I mean, yeah, I agree. I would think last week or last episode I said he'd have a job within a week. But all the positions are filled, so that does beg the question. I don't see him going to be an assistant on someone else's staff. He's too experienced. I don't see him necessarily going to an AHL club. Honestly, I think he waits. He waits until somebody is having a rough time this mid-season, 35, 40 games in, waits for that scenario similar to, I want to say, what happened in Detroit this season, or and see which coach is on the hot seat and looking for a mid-season firing and be there ready to step in and fix a team, be the hero and savior, because he also has that knock on his reputation where players have seen this league-wide and have seen how much the Dallas Stars as a team have spoken out against playing for DeBoer, and that's going to hurt his stock a little bit. Guys aren't going to necessarily want to play for him, so he almost needs to wait for the opportunity where he can come in and be a hero and a savior to be able to win over a locker room, because I know if I was there, I wouldn't want to have him be coming in as a coach. So my guess is that we don't see him behind the bench until midway through next season.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, and that seems to be the common sentiment among most media members here. Because, I mean, yeah, he has a proven track record. The Stars, I believe they said, were the #1 team in terms of points while he was their coach over 3 years. Out of any other team, Stars were the best, which is incredible. And he made 3 straight conference finals, and yet he's out of a job anyway. And I think that says a lot that, you can't just win. Oh, where do I want to go with that? How do I want to finish that, Dom?
Well, you can't just win. You actually have to win the whole thing. That was something we said, is he can win his way to the conference finals, but no further. So, I mean, winning cures all, except for he hasn't actually won it all. And then the other question is, do players want to play? Look at what happened in New York this season and how a team that was right there at the top of the league last year collapsed and missed the playoff entirely with all their talent and their problems in their locker room and their GM's office and everything. A lot of drama there. So it can cause problems and really wreck a team's chemistry and potential. So there's a risk inherently with hiring him and having him come in. So I think it puts him in a situation where he's waiting for a team who needs him more than they want him.
Yes, certainly so. And apparently it seems like the Bruins wanted him, which I would have loved because then he would have been in the Eastern Conference. But Dallas, it seems, purposely waited until other teams had found their head coaches before firing Pete DeBoer. Bit of a conspiracy. Who knows if that's the truth? But I mean, that's what happened regardless. But who knows if it was intentional on the Dallas Stars part? I'm not the Dallas Stars organization's part. I'm not sure. But it's interesting nonetheless.
It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, he has had that success, the consecutive finals, the fact that they have the most consistent points over a multi-year span, that tells you the success was not just a fluke thing that was over one season, which means he's doing something right, even if he's also done something wrong. You don't necessarily want to have to turn around and play against that. They were the beneficiaries of being on the right side of ranting in, doing the Avs dirty. They don't want to be on the wrong side of DeBoer doing the same thing to them. So whether it was intentional or not, you're right. We can hypothesize and have a fun conspiracy theory with it. But I respect the gamesmanship if it was, especially with some of his actions. I think it's actually deserved too, where it's like, A, here's your punishment. We're not going to allow you to get a job right away because you're good enough that you could. B, we don't like you and can't have you in our locker room anymore. But also, game recognized game, and we don't want to play against you either.
Exactly. Certainly so. And I mean, to follow that up, then I don't really have a good answer to this. And if you do, feel free to expand upon it, but we can skip right into the next question if we don't, because I'm not as heavily involved in that area of hockey. But I mean, I have here who replaces him, and I don't really have a good thought. I know of the available coaches out there, but I don't know who Dallas is thinking of, if any of the ones that are available.
Yeah, I I don't know personally. I would think that it's a tough one because if you go for a coach who's available, that means that you're creating an opening, or you're taking a coach that's not wanted by other organizations, so you're taking a risk on perhaps a lower quality coach. If you try to go poach a coach that's already employed somewhere else, you're creating an opening for DeBoer to step into, and then you have just basically a coaching swap. And you have to get a coach who you feel is better than him, otherwise you kind of lost a coach trade, if you will. So I don't know how coaches' contracts work. If you'd also have to pay compensation, like in the form of draft picks, to a team if you do poach their coach. So that's a question I would have to ask that I don't know the answer to. But you know more than me. I don't know who the top candidates would be at this time. So if you threw out some names, I could take a guess. But beyond that, I think we might have to save that one for a different day.
Yeah, nor do I. However, I mean, I've heard, Jay Woodcroft, fucking Torts, but also like the Texas Stars' current coach, their Stars assistant coach. So I mean, I've heard a couple just in that general sphere. But I mean, as far as who they'd be eyeballing, that's outside of my scope of expertise.
Yeah, and we would just be guessing, right, if they were eyeballing someone else. I think I'm not sure who is coaching for the Texas Stars, but they were very successful going to the AHL Conference Finals this year. So that would be a worthy candidate who might have earned that consideration. So that would not be a crazy one to think of. I mean, I think Torts has
a mixed
record. Yeah, let's not do that one though.
Yeah. Sorry, you can keep going on Torts. I'm just trying to say, let's not bring John Tortorella back into the league, please.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's really it. Is that his could it work? Yeah, but have we seen how it doesn't work? Absolutely, and so I don't think that would be advisable anyway.
Fun fact, everyone: the Texas Stars also lost in the conference finals. Anyway. And funnily enough, the Texas Stars, no, it was the Abbotsford Canucks who beat the Eagles. Never mind, we're good. I was about to say the Texas Stars also beat the Eagles, but that would be wrong. But yeah, honestly, don't really care who replaces them as long as it's not like Scotty Bowman. Then I'd have a problem. Then I'd have a problem with it. But with that being said, Dom, how do you think this affects Dallas as a team going forward? Do they get better with a new coach? Do they get worse? Do they kind of just stay the same? What do you think?
Well, I think there's going to be regression, but we talked about major change. It's not just because the coach. They're at a bit of an inflection point with a lot of their veterans being unrestricted free agents, and so it can kind of go either way. They've also been at the top, so there's not much room for them to go up. It's more likely that they will have a slight regression. There's been talks of multiple different players potentially being on the move. The question of whether or not Jamie Benn will still be around, and if so, how much. There's talks of, I mean, we've talked about it here about Robertson having to be traded, looking to the future, how bloated Sagan's contract is and how that's hurting the team. You're probably losing guys like Granlund, maybe Blackwell as well, Matt Duchene. So this team's going to look very different next year. And with a different coach on top of it, it seems more likely to me that they see some modest regression. They're still going to be a good team. I would still project them as a playoff team, but maybe less perfectly, like seeming like a world-ending, like this is a cup contender team that they have felt like they were all year.
Thank you. And everybody, the reason I asked Dom is because he can give a less biased opinion than I will give, because you all know how I feel about the Stars and about Pete DeBoer. I do think you're right, though. If we look at it just objectively, from the perspective of when Pete DeBoer was the coach of the Stars, as I just mentioned, they had the most amount of points for any team over that 3 years. And when I say points, I'm not talking about goals. I'm talking about in terms of like wins, loss, OT losses that they accumulated over those 3 years. So very successful regular seasons and obviously successful postseasons. They made 3 straight Western Conference Finals, in which they lost in 5 games every single time. But, that's neither here nor there. Definitely not a reason that he was fired. But looking at it like that, I think Dom is right in the fact that you can, I think, expect a bit of a natural regression when exactly as he said, they were at the top. I don't think you can necessarily get much better than what Pete DeBoer was giving you in terms of the regular season, no matter who you realistically bring in as a coach. Again, I'm sure I'll be totally wrong and the Stars will win the fucking President's Trophy next year, but in theory, I agree that we'll probably see them get, a little worse. Now, does that mean they're going to fall off the face of the earth? Of course not. They're the fucking Dallas Stars. Jim Nill set this team up for success for the next 1,000 years, to his credit. But hopefully it does mean that they are lower in the Central Division, especially with teams like Minnesota and Utah on the rise. And I think the Avalanche will be better next season. So yeah, I agree with that, Dom. I see you're muted, so I'm just going to keep rolling right on into the next segment here. Wait, he unmuted. Yes.
Oh, no, I was going to say that's all good. I had just muted to drink my water. Drink your water, folks.
Yes, everybody, drink your water. So our final bit here with the Avalanche is trade rumors. As Dom alluded to a little bit earlier, let's talk about some of this bullshit. So it's a relief that the Brock Nelson question has been resolved, because there are now about 20 other questions that have been generated over the last couple of weeks. The frustrating thing is we likely won't get a lot of answers until July 1st, or at least until the Stanley Cup Final concludes. But, excuse me, looking at the Avalanche specifically, there are a few that we can address, although, just to be clear, I myself am merely speculating and guessing based on the information that I am aware of and have no hard conclusions on any of what we will discuss. Just wanted to bring up some of these rumors based on the Avalanche and their players. We'll leave, the rest of the league to others, or we'd be here all night. But the biggest one that I've seen that people have taken and just absolutely ran with for some reason, so I hope Marty is staying off his phone so that he isn't gaslit into believing that's true, is that Martin Necas is apparently somewhat unsatisfied with his time in Colorado. First off, one person said this, and it hasn't been corroborated or confirmed by anyone else to my understanding. Second, the local Avalanche media here in Colorado have not heard anything of the sort and are much closer to the team, so they say to take it with a grain of salt, and so do I until we're proven otherwise. Third, dissatisfaction could mean a variety of things. It could have been a dissatisfaction with how far Marty and the Avs went in the playoffs, and that is a perfectly reasonable thing to be frustrated about, that all players on the team, I'm sure, are experiencing in some capacity. The main concern is that Martin Necas was unhappy with how his last contract negotiations went with the Hurricanes, which was evidenced by him going to arbitration. Therefore, people are concerned that the same will happen with the Avs, and I do hope the Avs don't kick rocks on his contract and get it done now, just as you said, Dom, or we'll end up in a similar situation to Mikko, and like Mikko, the Avs have shown, though, that they'll be ruthless when necessary. They'll find a dance partner and hopefully net a good return for Martin Necas, if necessary. I just don't think it will be. Now, before moving forward, Dom, would you be willing to grant us a quick definition, if you have one, on what arbitration is for player contracts?
Sure. My best understanding is what the arbitration is typically where you see this with restricted free agents or earlier on in their contract windows when they're younger. And it's that basically the player can want a number, the team can want another number, and then they can go to arbitration and basically have a team-controlled path to a number in the middle. It helps to, in some sense, cap a player's value if their rights are held by the team, to my understanding.
So I will read a little bit here what Puckpedia actually defines it as, but I think you pretty much hit the nail on the head there, is that exactly as you said, restricted free agents are eligible for arbitration if the following qualifications are met, and only restricted free agents can go to arbitration. And you have to also meet certain definitions to be a restricted free agent. We're not going to get into that right now. So you can be either a player elected arbitration, meaning if the player has not signed an offer sheet, they can elect to go to arbitration, or teams can take players to arbitration, a maximum of 2 team elections per year. And there's a bunch of mumbo jumbo here, but essentially, if the player is not happy with what the team is offering them, they can elect to go to arbitration, or the team can do the same. And basically, the player will present all the reasons that they feel they are deserving of what they think is a proper contract, and the team will present otherwise why they think they are deserving of the money or not deserving of the money that they think is proper. And basically, a third party, an arbitration judge, will make the ruling for that player. We saw this happen with Jeremy Swayman. Obviously, it happened with Martin Necas. And eventually, you come out of it with usually something that's a happy medium between the two.
I would say a medium, but often not happy. That's a great way to burn bridges. And when we talk about negotiating in good faith, and the fact that Brock Nelson, there were talks from both camps being interested in the extension, and then how that worked, it would be negotiating in bad faith. It would be using the system to get the financial outcome rather than being considerate of a human being in that process. So typically as well, when you have restricted free agents like that, when they come off of one, as you see with Martin Necas, and then have the opportunity to be an unrestricted free agent, they elect not to risk going through that process again. It can be very jarring, scarring, and typically does go in favor of the team. A lot of times if a contract is going to arbitration, or there's that difference in value, it's because they're not this all-star player that the team is really looking to pay for and secure for a long time. So typically the numbers tend to lean slightly towards the team's favor, and that can be it can be disgruntling for a player.
Certainly so. But moving forward here, that's all I have to say about Necas. Dom, did you have anything else you wanted to add about like the Necas conversation in general here? I kind of forced you into that other thing, so I apologize for that.
No worries at all. As far as the Necas conversation goes, I know I said that I think the Avs did the right thing being able to get two players, even if it's in exchange for one, and it makes their team better. If they aren't able to re-sign Necas, though, you run into that problem with Carolina's inability to re-sign Rantanen, and so you better get a stellar return, but otherwise you're going to look like you did a poor job. It's going to leave a salty taste in the mouth, and you're certainly going to feel like you lost that trade over the whole of it. So I think this is crucial for the Avalanche, especially now with the salary cap going up. And I can double check what the cap space will be for the Avs here in a year. If we look at that, they're going to have a lot more projected cap space in just a year's time compared to now. So that's something that I feel like there's no reason that they shouldn't be able to get it done and be able to give him a contract that he is happy with and do that sooner than later. I mean, 30 million cap space for next year. They can give him 10 if that's what they need to do, especially since they haven't done that with anyone else yet. And Cale Makar is the next one looking for that type of deal, and that's still another year away.
Paid.
But that's still another year away till he's an unrestricted free agent, and that you have plenty, even more space, up to 62 million in that following off seasons right now, based on what the projections are. So I really see no reason why that they shouldn't get this done, and it would be thoroughly disappointing, and I would have to start to consider the Avs losers of the Rantanen trade if they failed to re-sign Necas.
No, I completely agree with you, and I'm confident that it'll all turn out okay. I have no reason to be negative in this scenario until proven otherwise, really. So, everybody, let's all stay calm and just assume that everything will be fine until it's not. Okay? But moving along here, the biggest trade candidates I have heard for the Avalanche are as follows: Charlie Coyle, Miles Wood, Ross Colton, Josh Manson, and Sam Girard. To start, though, I truly don't know or understand why Sam Girard has been the whipping boy for Avs fans when it comes to talking about players they want to trade. It has been that way for years, and he's a bit of a Mitch Marner in an Avs sweater. People just love to dog on him, and I understand that it's a $5 million a year, or $5 million a year, but it's unlikely that you trade him and find someone of equal skill with better value to replace him. As Mile High Hockey pointed out, it's a lateral move, and I don't think it will ultimately help the Avalanche in the long run. Not to mention, I like Samuel Girard. He actually was one of the better contributors during the Avalanche's series against Dallas this year, and don't forget, he's also a Stanley Cup champion despite being knocked out in round 2. Josh Manson, though, I could see some motivation for. When he's healthy, I have always thought he's been fine. He was a big reason why they won in 2022. However, his health has been a constant issue in recent years. He just cannot stay off of IR, which doesn't help when you're eating 4.5 million in cap space. I like his pairing with Ryan Lindgren, and Manson has that physical grit that the Avalanche sometimes lack, and he certainly can drop the gloves and kick some ass, but you need to clear some space. He is someone I could see heading out the door. Now, Miles Wood and Ross Colton are somewhat in the same box, or at least people are trying to shove them in the same box, that being they are paid too much for the positions they take up on the roster. Everyone knows how I feel about Miles Wood, and I already think that's true, but Ross Colton is a bit of a tougher nut. I think he would have been a better option on the third line in the series against Dallas over Kivi Ranta, as he has a better physical edge and bigger scoring touch in my opinion, but he fucked up his groin and was out after game 1 if I recall correctly. He has proven though that he can be in the top 6 role if necessary, although the problem is now the Avalanche's top 6 is set, but he is someone that can step up in case of injury. It really comes down to how the Avalanche want their roster constructed into next year, but that is $4 million. They may need to sign a free agent, or they may need to sign a free agent whether they are currently on the roster or not. Finally, with Charlie Coyle, I think Dom actually did a great job of explaining this, as my answer is somewhat short. But I think the Avs had a major misstep here when they failed to have Boston retain any salary on Coyle. And it's tough because I personally really, really like Coyle on the third line, and it makes the Avalanche's center depth utterly disgusting. But his name is one of the biggest ones out there with a risk of being moved. All I will say is I hope the Avalanche find a way to keep him. Unfortunately, they do have needs that they need to address, and we'll keep everyone updated as the news unfolds.
Well, and you said it, because Boston did not retain any salary. I think, again, I'm only speculating, but I think it's not if, it's when he's moved that the Avalanche are now going to be put in a position where they have to retain salary, and they're not going to get that full $5 million that they were paying him back to have available. So there is a risk of a lateral move, because I don't know how many teams want to pay that much for a 3C, and I don't know how many teams look at him and actually see him as a legitimate 2C either. So it's a bit of a conniption. It's between a rock and a hard place, but we'll see how it all plays out. Again, your GM work, the front office has been doing a great job in recent years for the Avalanche, so I'm sure whatever they figure out, it'll be smarter than anything I can come up with sitting here on the couch.
Exactly. Between a Brock and a cock, just
Yeah, we got to get you that jersey, that custom one. We got to figure out how that works.
Some of the websites don't allow you to put in enough letters. I can get Big Cock Burr, but I can't fit the full Big Cock Brock. And then other websites where I can fit in all the letters, they don't have my size. So I'll figure it out, everybody. I swear to God, I'm going to get this jersey one way or another. I'm going to get this jersey. Now, to finish up this trade rumors segment, though, I agree with the sentiment that Joe Sakic shared, that if the Avalanche could run it back with the roster they walked into the playoffs last year, they should. However, it isn't possible this year, unless some guys are willing to take some serious discounts, and even with that, you cannot keep everyone. But I think the Avalanche are still setting themselves up for several more years of contention and success, and I, in fact, think that this next season will be even better than the last, but we will simply have to wait and see, and I eagerly await to see the Avalanche's next move going forward.
Yep, it is a waiting game, and like I said, I know they sometimes start slower in free agency, but I do hope that they take some initiative in this offseason and see them making moves in the first week of July.
Exactly. I'm with you there. I didn't write this down, but there is one more piece of Avalanche news that just came out today, and that's Cale Makar has won his second Norris Trophy, baby, and he won by a fucking landslide. It was not even close. So well done to Cale Makar. Well deserved. Nathan McKinnon put it perfectly. He said, I thought you had 10, but apparently this is only number 2. But it is likely that this is not Cale Makar's last Norris Trophy either. He truly is the greatest offensive defenseman of our time. He is just magic to watch, and we are so lucky as Avalanche fans to be able to watch him on a consistent basis. And boy, oh boy, you better believe Joe Sakic and Chris McFarland are going to pay him whatever number he fucking asks for.
Yeah, but he's also a good human too, so who knows? Maybe
He is.
he doesn't go for an exorbitant cap number because he wants to have more space and keep the winning window open. I mean, I wouldn't put it past him with his character and what he's shown. Like, could he be, with inflation and everything and the way these contracts are going, worth 16 million in a year or two, and he takes like 14 instead? Like, I mean, 14 right now sounds like a lot, but in 2 years it won't be as much anymore. So it wouldn't surprise me if he would be willing to do something like that because he wants the team to be able to be successful for the long term.
I agree. He definitely seems like the kind of guy who would take a hometown discount, but still, I think, get compensated fairly for his services. Because again, Cale Makar at $9 million is the best contract in the NHL, and you cannot tell me otherwise. Anyway.
I won't try. I agree with you.
Exactly. Remember, everybody, Darnell Nurse makes $9.25 million. Moving on. Moving on. Everyone, I somewhat lied to you. I said I would leave the rest of the league to others. Well, Dom is others, and he is going to politely fill us in on other things that we as hockey fans should know. So thank you for always keeping us informed, Dom. It's time for In the Tank with Dom.
Well, thanks, Corey. Really quickly, the only piece of Sharks news in the tank tonight, so we're going to lead off with that, is that Macklin Celebrini did not, in fact, become Macklin Calder-Brini, no matter how much I campaigned for it. Realistically, it was just never going to happen with his injury-shortened season. He finished third in Calder voting.
I was shocked he came
and it really wasn't close.
Yeah,
it wasn't close. I mean, between him and for Wolf, it was a lot closer between second and third, because right at the top, Hudson ran away with it, and I don't think anyone was really surprised by that by season's end, especially with the Canadiens making the playoffs. So congratulations to Lane Hudson, well deserved. But Celebrini's, maybe he comes back with a vengeance and hunting for more next year. Who knows? I'm still excited to see it, and I think all Sharks fans should be. It's just another one of those trophies and awards that, at the end of the day, it's a personal accolade. It doesn't mean anything for the grand scheme of the team. So not a real loss for us as fans. And I do think the most deserving candidate won in the end, no matter how much I will campaign for Calder-Brini. But moving forward, because no need to perseverate on that. Let's talk. I said the word. It's the word. Last time, or I'm going to keep doing this, but while we are still here pre-unrestricted free agency, we are still dealing with restricted free agents. And I'm going to just run through some of the other players who have re-signed with their teams. I'm going to keep with my old rule of it's going to be at least 1 million AAV for these cap hits, and so that we're players that the names might be more known to you, or that they're getting a little bit more compensated rather than closer to a league minimum contract. And most recently, we're going to start with 24-year-old right winger Adam Klapka for the Calgary Flames. Part of this younger core, I don't know if core is necessarily the right word, but a younger piece of the success in Calgary. And I don't know if we can say rebuild anymore, but they're pushed towards relevance. He is going to be re-signing for 2 years of a total value of $2.5 million, or that's 1.25 average annual. At the age of 24, he will also still be a restricted free agent when this contract expires. So this is a bit of a prove-it deal for him, where he gets more money, about $500,000 more to be exact, and the team can still have his negotiating rights in the inside track in a couple years' time. So he can also ask for more money depending on how this goes, or the team will be able to cut him loose without much of an impact. So it's a great contract for Calgary as they're looking to push for the playoffs next year. We already covered Brock Nelson, so moving back, it's been 8 days now, but Noah Cates, the 26-year-old left winger for the Philadelphia Flyers. Now, he will not be eligible to be a restricted free agent when his upcoming contract is over, regardless of what length it was. So he was given a 4-year term at $4 million average for 16 total value, about 4% of the current cap, to be part of the Flyers, I guess, core moving forward. As a middle six winger, someone that they believe that can be a top six guy in the long term, getting him at a price controlled point for what they believe his ceiling can be, but also what his floor is, looking at the third line. Derek Forbert, the defenseman, 33 years old for the Vancouver Canucks, has signed a one-year deal to remain with the team. He wasn't going to be an unrestricted free agent, but has elected to stay in Vancouver for a cap hit of $2 million, which it seems like a fair deal for both sides to have an experienced D-man, someone who can be that depth on the blue line without being overpaid for based on the value he brings. And let's see. Now those were really the only three of note of names that might be household names. If for those of you who watch other teams and then listen to us, I'm sure you already know the players that have signed for your franchise, so I'm not going to run through all of them. But I'll continue to be on the hunt and hopefully see some Sharks contract updates soon. From what I've heard, it sounds like both Eklund and the Sharks are excited to start discussing salary at July 1st when he becomes eligible to do so, even though he's not a restricted free agent until next offseason. Although I've heard a wide range of values ranging anywhere from $3 million per year all the way up to something in the $8 million range. So there's a lot of disagreement from different projections, different sports writers out there, just different machines on what do they think he's going to be worth. I think I've said something around the give him a 6-year for $7 million type of deal, and I really do hope that happens for Eklund. But since it's the tank, and I just want ideas for what can the Sharks do with all their cap space.
Oh wait! Can I interject real quick? There is another
yes, please do.
Free agent coming in that I'd like to just bring some attention to. Jonathan Toews. It has been said that Jonathan Toews is likely going to sign with either the Jets or the Toronto Maple Leafs, with the Ducks being an outside shot. There is also rumors that Chris Kreider, well, not rumors, pretty much confirmed, he just has to sign off on it, that Chris Kreider will be traded to the Ducks as well. And in other Ducks news, it is said that they are prepared to offer Mitch Marner over $14 million. So the Ducks are just in on a lot of pieces right now. So just wanted to quickly add those on.
Yeah, I mean, when they have Lucas Dostal and have him at a cheap price point right now, it is a good time for them to go swinging. Being in division and a rival, I really hope he doesn't end up there, but I guess it's better than Vegas, who is another shooter I've heard. So rock and a hard place for me there. That's probably true. You're right about that. So I guess I have to be more worried about Anaheim. But yeah, Toews making the comeback. It sounds like that's going to be exciting. He was a big proponent, big successful story in the 2010s. Big multiple time Stanley Cup champion, I believe. Do correct me if I'm wrong there, Corey. So really great to see him feeling healthy enough and in a good place to come back on the ice.
He said he will make his decision by the NHL draft. So here in the next couple weeks, we should have an answer to where he is planning on going. I know the Avalanche were an option, so you never know. Sometimes, for example, when Kadri was supposed to be an Islander, he was supposed to go to the Islanders, blah, 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 and he signed with the Flames. Nobody said anything about the Flames, so just wait and see, because you never know until it's actually confirmed.
That is a very true point, and we can speculate all we want, but at the end of the day, we will just have to wait and see. And thank you for mentioning that, Corey. I did not know that he was actually considering a return, so that's actually great news. Oh, yeah,
he's coming.
But back to the Sharks, I can now go back to speculating on either what I want to happen or what might happen. And I've said it, but it actually seems more and more likely that Mikael Granlund is legitimately considering a return to San Jose. Again, it is speculation, but based on his age and the value he can still bring to a team, he could be one of those bridge leaders brought in to support, similar to what Tyler Toffoli did, and have that type of contract that might be $6 million per year. Seems like a range that he would be interested in also for the right situation. However, obviously his time is running out to compete, so there have been mixed reports on that one. I'm still campaigning for it endlessly. But at the end of the day, the Sharks could use that in their top 6 right now to have that 2C, like you talked about last week, as a good candidate for that available on the market, he can certainly play the position or be able to flex to wing or even on the third line. So a lot of flexibility there that could be beneficial, especially as the Sharks look for a bridge for the next few years. Alex Wenberg is going to be in the final year of his contract at $5 million. And I think from the standpoint of the GM's office, and there's been a little bit of disappointment. He's been a great leader off the ice, but on the ice, he still has had that issue with shooting enough. And he's not going to be a sustainable part of the top six for the Sharks. So depending on how much he wants, this might ultimately be his last season in teal. So a type of player, a type of leader in the locker room that the Sharks might be looking to replace to go after a guy like Granlund. So I'm going to keep saying it until it happens. But the other thing the Sharks really need this offseason, and I'm really hoping to see come July 1st, Corey, is they need an experienced goaltender to be a bridge 1B for Askarov, and then as he ages, or as Askarov is ready to just take over more and more, that goaltender can also phase naturally into being a backup. And I saw this one online. I'm going to give credit to Brian Logan, who was writing this about the Sharks, but this idea of Anton Forsberg from Ottawa. Now that Ottawa has gone after Linus Ullmark, who is going to be the primary goaltender, Forsberg would be a great bridge option, a sizable upgrade, because unfortunately neither of the Sharks depth options who are restricted free agents seem like a great option. Georgi Romanov, seeing the stat line, he was 0-6-0 with a 389 GAA this past season in the games he played. So even though he's a Russian goaltender with some potential, it seems like he needs more time in the AHL, and at the age of 25 he might just not be the answer. And Gabriel Carrier, who also stepped up at points from the AHL for the Sharks, did not seem to be ready either. So the Sharks need to, in free agency, go find a goaltender, and it's a tough market right now for that. So they might have to swing a trade, Corey. So I know it's not any like formal Sharks news, but the good news about having a lot of picks and a lot of cap space is the Sharks can make trades for players and pick up guys that are experienced or on expiring contracts to take dead money off of teams, to also help by getting a player they want. And so maybe that's the type of deal we see them make, especially with a team like Ottawa, for example, who they already dealt with at the end of the, the trade deadline last year. So any thoughts on that one, Corey?
Well, just overall, I was taking a couple notes just so I remembered it. See, I was smart. I wrote down what I wanted to say, and now I won't forget it. One, going all the way back to Granlund, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, Dom, and maybe you had seen this, but it seems like Dallas has a strong interest in actually re-signing and retaining MacLeod Granlund now. Obviously, the player has to want that as well, and based on what you're saying, it sounds like he does have a very strong will to come back to San Jose. Interesting thing, did not know MacLeod Granlund was part of the 2010 draft class. He has been playing for a fucking long time. I had no idea. So just something I thought I'd bring up, although Dallas obviously is in their own cap crunch. So we'll see what they end up doing, because they also, like the Avalanche, cannot keep everybody. So we'll see what ends up happening there. And I do hope for your team that you are able to bring back Granlund just to help mentor all these new kids coming in. To add on to your goalie comments, though, Dom, there is an experienced goaltender, and his name is Alexander Georgiev. That's right. For the low price of, I don't know what you would pay that, you can have Alex Georgiev on your roster.
Well, thankfully, GM Mike Greer has already confirmed that will not be the case. So, sounds good. Rest of NHL, for the very, very low price of, we don't know, but it's probably not more than $2 million, you can have 29-year-old Alex Georgiev be your backup goaltender. So, good for you.
I genuinely hope he has a bounce back year. I do. I really hope he has a good year. If he gets signed by a team, I hope he has a good season. I really do. Because, man, I don't think anybody can just fall off a cliff the way that Alex Georgiev did. I feel like if he doesn't have a heavy workload, he's just a backup, he can do good on a competing team. You know what I mean? Like for a cheap contract, not a heavy just a backup, not a heavy workload, I think he can do fine.
My theory is, when you say all of that information, and I'm putting this together live time, so this could sound blasphemous, but
Oh
I
boy,
actually think Vegas is going to be the type of landing spot because
I can
they
see that.
supposedly do want to move on from their backup situation, do not intend to retain that. Aiden Hill has had experience with some injuries. There's some inconsistency at points and is also not getting up there in age, but he can use a couple extra games off compared to other, younger goaltenders on contending teams. So that seems like a good fit also with where their cap space is at, where that they could give him just the right number to come in there and have a chance
Yeah,
to revitalize his career. Because also in that system, we've seen a lot of experienced goaltenders do well.
yeah.
So I hate to say it, but we wish him the best. We don't wish Vegas the best, but also
No.
if it goes badly, the Sharks can have their turn to score on him and get their forgy of goals. So and the Avs could too. So win-win. He stays in the West, and we can all score on him and exercise our demons. So just a thought.
And honestly, if they let go of Ilya Samsonov, there you go. There's your backup. That's a great. That'd be great for wow. Am I okay? Who the fuck is your goaltender? Askarov. There it is. That would be great. A backup for Askarov. Experienced guy, has playoff experience. Solid. So yeah, I think that'd be good.
Yeah, so that's just a little random insights because obviously we've talked about a lot. The Sharks need defensemen. They can go after Bo Byram and try to get him. I believe he's a restricted free agent, so they don't have the picks, or they don't really want to be giving the picks, I should say, based on the value of their picks and how high they're projected to draft next year. They don't want to be going after an offer sheet for some of these guys. So it seems like that they're going to have to try to put together a trade package of futures that is interesting enough for some of these teams. So the Sharks have the opportunity to be really active on the market this year. A lot of cap space, a lot of flexibility on what they can do, both in trading and just signing in free agency. But one has to wonder just how active they will ultimately be. So just based on whether or not they feel they're close enough to the cup window to start handing out larger contracts to people not currently with the team. So it's just something interesting to look into. But the one thing that I do know they need, and that is in short supply right now, is a solid startable backup goaltender. And so that's something I would not be surprised to see them prioritize in the first days of free agency.
Now, somewhat unrelated question here, Dom, although kind of related. There has been some talks about the Sharks possibly trading up to get the first overall pick to get Matthew Schaefer. What do you think about that?
So obviously we need defensemen, and I think if that happens, being a left-handed defenseman with Sam Dickinson coming up, I don't know how much it costs to move up one pick. And it would have to be because the Islanders have someone they're willing to take at pick number 2, that the Sharks could potentially get it for cheaper. I would not like to see them give up their other first-round pick, even though it's at the end of the first round. So it's tough to project the value of moving up one spot in the first round, but that one spot is for Schaefer, especially with the need on defense. I will say this, though. If the Sharks were to pull the trigger, regardless of what they made in the trade, I personally think that would signal that they are going to likely trade Mario Ferraro sometime this season. And the reason I say that is because they have 2 defensemen who play on the left side signed for this year at $1 million, and both are restricted free agents next year, and that is Henry Thrun and Shakir Mukhamadullin. And so that's one of your left-handed defensemen. Schaefer is someone who projects to be in the NHL within a year. If he's not starting right away, he'll be there the year after. And Dickinson looks ready to make the jump as early as this upcoming season. They all play on the left-hand side. So if the Sharks are going to make that move to jump up that one spot and go for him, it is going to put someone like Mario Ferraro in a spot where he's on a $3.25 million contract. He's been in trade rumors for over a year now, and the Sharks have elected to retain him and haven't been given enough to send him away. But if they have enough stock of those defensemen and those really great defensemen ready to go in the wings, then makes it feel more likely that he might actually finally be traded. So from that perspective, I like Mario Ferraro as a player. I like his cost control. He's great at blocking shots and just brings a lot of energy. So I'm really hoping the Sharks can actually get a deal done with him here this offseason and get him locked in for like maybe 4.5 per year for the next 3 or 4 years and be that bridge defenseman. And we'll see if he fits into the long-term picture, be one of those more experienced guys in the room in the long term. So that's my personal hope. So to answer your question, I would think maybe not actually trade up for Schaefer, especially when it's not necessarily a guarantee that the Islanders will take Schaefer either. They should, but there's still some wiggle room about whether or not that will happen. And Michael Misa he's NHL ready. He will start. He's going to pull a celebrating. He's going to be starting next year wherever he's playing. He could be a top line center. So to have him as a second line center when we also have a guy in Chernyshov who he's played with, who's in our AHL system, looking ready to make the jump up soon, getting the two of them back on a line together from when they played earlier in the past, that seems mighty appealing to me. So I've been reading a lot and seeing from the combine and stuff. Apparently Misa really was seeming to enjoy and be high on the Sharks and liking that opportunity. So I'm starting to feel that way as well, and that I think he could be a great fit, and it frees up Will Smith to play on the wing with MacLeod, or Misa can play on the wing. There's just so many options when you have 3 top 2 centers, and what you can do with moving them around. That's a huge value, a huge a talent boost and goal scoring boost. So I don't know, but I'm leaning no.
All right, fair enough. I have nothing more to add there then.
Sorry for that ramble.
No,
it's a tough
detailed
one.
Answer. I'm glad you gave a thorough answer.
Yeah, I've been, I think, waffling it a little bit. So it's some of it's fresh, some of it's like I've been going back and forth in my mind. But like I said, if it risks like the expensive Mario Ferraro as well, who's a player I definitely like, I feel like that can be a tie-breaking factor to make me think Misa is going to be the great pick at number 2.
For sure. Well, Dom, anything else for In the Tank today?
Nothing really else from around the league. So whenever you're ready, let's talk Cup Final.
That's right, baby. That's exactly what we're gonna do. But first, everyone, point and laugh at Dom. He was on vacation and not watching hockey. He wasn't doing his job. Actually, no. Boom. Boo! How dare you not watch hockey and be on vacation with your girlfriend and family, Dom? How dare you?
I know, I'm just the absolute worst.
Evil. Well, once again, I just have bullet points right now because if you're not watching these games, I feel bad for you. Because just like we said in last week's episode, these are better teams than they were last year. These are different teams than they were last year. And these first 2 games have been all-time classics. Just absolute scoring duels. One team pulls ahead by 1, then the other team ties. And then you're going into the end of the fucking third period. You're about to take the win, and Edmonton ties it in the final minute. We go to overtime, and Edmonton wins it in overtime. Yay! And then the exact same thing happens in the next game, but Brad Marchand plays spoiler, and they win. And for now, I'm just sticking to the first 2 games. We'll get to game 3 here in a sec. But man, were those fun to watch. Like, truly. I mean, high scoring, high event hockey. I mean, bodies flying everywhere, goals going everywhere. I mean, there's not much else to say other than just the pure displays of skills, systems, and really the 2 best teams going at it from the East and the West competing for hockey's ultimate prize. They have been a treat to watch. So despite the fact that I do not like either of these teams, and really the best option would be for a meteor to strike the arena that they are playing in, all I said was, and Dom, you may recall, that I just hope the series is good, and boy, has it delivered.
Yeah, the fact that the first 2 games in Edmonton both go to overtime, the second one to double overtime, the series split, super close, razor-thin margins. I was able to see a little bit or track the score at least, and I saw with like 5 minutes left when Florida was up in game 1, and I was just like, oh, let's see it happen. And then Edmonton did an Edmonton thing and was able to sweep the win out from under them. But yeah, it is thoroughly exciting. I'm sad to have missed it with the opportunity and only watched the highlights, but man, we're watching the highlights still. Like an enjoyable video to watch from Sportsnet on YouTube for sure.
Well, thankfully, Dom, you can watch tomorrow's game because after game 3, I am really curious as to what's going to happen next. Because boy, oh boy, I don't fucking know. Oh, brief side tangent before I forget. I forgot to mention when Cale Makar won the Norris, some teammates posted like a congratulatory video. It was Taves, McKinnon, and Landeskog, all who seemed very happy. But Taves' shirt, he was wearing like a shirt with Cale's face like screaming on it. And it was really funny, and I want it. Devon, if you listen to this podcast, which of course Devon Taves listens to the Captain Avalanche fancast, send me that shirt, bro. I want that shirt. Hop off of that side.
Yes, and he doesn't mean just a version of it. He wants that exact shirt that was being worn.
The exact one that you're wearing, because I'm sure we're the same size. Yeah, the third game was an ass beating. Like, as some other creators would say, I think Trailer Park Sports Network, shout out to him, a belt to ass. Oh my God. But see, if you take less penalties, it's usually easier to try and win. And Edmonton did exactly what Florida wanted them to do. And I continue to question, why do people keep playing Florida the way Florida plays? Carolina tried to do it, and it didn't work. And now last game, Edmonton tried to do it, and it didn't work. People, don't try and play like Florida. Only Florida can successfully play like Florida. Because if you try and play like Florida, you end up with what Edmonton had, which is like 10 fucking penalties, 4 of which are in the first period. And I mean, Evander Kane is really just a boat anchor on his team.
Yeah, Vander Kane, a boat anchor. Surprised that Wallman lost his cool and received 2 fines from the game, totaling 10,000.
Dude, him squirting water was so funny. That was so funny.
But it's true. You're not going to beat Florida, at their own game. You're just not going to do it. They've done it so well. They have the right cast of characters for it. And Edmonton's whining and complaining after the game. Multiple players saying it's clear like the calls aren't going their way. We're not seeing the same penalties called that we're getting called for, and it's like, you know what? Maybe you're right, and they're not, because they're better at selling it and making it look legal and timing it when the ref isn't looking. Like, this is what Florida does. They are experts at getting under your skin. It's just like that sibling who pokes you and bugs you and gets under your skin so that you get caught by your parents with being upset and making the second move. They are the experts at that. I mean, look, you literally have Brad Marchand, the Rat King, playing on the other side of the ice. You are not going to out-rat these fools. You cannot play their brand of hockey and think you're going to win.
Yeah, Brad Marchand really was the perfect ad. When he skated by their bench and by the Oilers bench, he points at his head and he says, "Use your head." That was some insane work. I've never had the final 10 minutes of a game take so long. But I mean, I don't understand what Edmonton was trying to gain at that point. Like, I understand you're frustrated, but bro, the game is over. Quit trying to take a run every whistle. You're not proving anything. You're not. Plus, you're running a risk of Florida taking a run at your star players. I'm not saying they should, but they might. It's Florida, so don't be fucking stupid.
Well, and Florida's being super smart about that. I've seen multiple times they're laughing. They're laughing in the face of the guy who's taking a run at them. Like, the player who's getting run at is just chuckling, staring him down like, yeah, you know what? Fucking hit me. I'm not even going to try to stop you. You get a game suspension, and I'll be here ready to win the next game, and we'll put up a 3-1 series lead on you. Go for it. Like, come on, let's do it. Please,
exactly.
Take your fine. Like, get more mad. You're going to play even more like this when you're pissed off, and it'll be better for us in the long term. So Florida, is being super composed and doing just enough to irritate Edmonton, but also not retaliating and getting sucked into that game. Like, I've seen there were multiple times where there were fighting majors and misconducts and roughings that were exchanged, but it always was one or two extra going against Edmonton, and that results in a Florida power play. So they are being very smart with the second guys in, or the extracurriculars of not taking it too far, or doing just enough but not too much to get equal penalties.
And I mean, this is, again, how Florida plays their game. And exactly as I said, this is what Florida wants Edmonton to do. Because obviously when Edmonton is playing well, they can compete with Florida. They can score. They can push the game close. But when you allow Florida to get under your skin like this, and when you're undisciplined, Florida has an easy time taking advantage of it. Now, I think some people were saying that Florida only won because Edmonton collapsed to such an extreme degree. And yes, if no team didn't win that game, I would be embarrassed for you. But I think Florida exemplifies being the best at taking advantage of those collapses. And I mean, they did so in full effect. Edmonton never even had a chance after that point. Because even if you're not scoring on the power play, the other team only has 4 guys. It's harder for them to score and even the game at that point. And with constant interruptions and stoppages, momentum could never shift the other way. And Florida is able to leverage that to the nth degree, and I think they do it the very best. So it isn't just that Edmonton collapsed, but Florida forced them into that collapse and then was able to use that experience and skill to leverage it to the maximum possible degree. And that's why we got a score of 6-1.
Well, and you said it there, is Florida, yeah, Edmonton collapsed, but it is because Florida got so under their skins and provoked them to. Really, they got in their heads. They won the mental battle. And so, yes, it would have been thoroughly disappointing and shameful, honestly, if Florida had not won that game with how much they had earned that win with the mental game. So it was the game within the game, and Florida dominated that one.
And what's interesting is when Corey Perry, who is the only Oiler to score in the last 135 minutes of game time, when he scored the goal, the Oilers' only goal, that made it 2-1. The game is still well within reach at that point. And yet the Oilers allowed themselves to really be taken advantage of. And I mean, there's been arguments on, Florida's playing dirty, so-and-so's playing dirty. I think there has been plenty of examples all throughout the playoffs of both of these clubs doing some dirty and questionable shit. And both clubs have players who play with quite the edge. And I can absolutely name examples on both. I won't, because I don't need people coming after me. But if I need to, I will. But I don't need to, because you can see it when you're watching these two teams play, especially as a somewhat neutral observer. Of course, I have some bias. I don't like Edmonton, but I don't want Florida to win either. I don't want either of these guys to win. I want my team to win. I do, though, have a bet going with somebody, and I have a dinner on the line. So if Florida wins, I get a free dinner. But if Edmonton wins, I have to pay for dinner. So let's go Cats.
Yeah, I mean, I'm rooting for Florida. That would be, if Paige watched a lot of hockey, that would probably be her team from her old local, spending most of her life in Florida. So I'm like, you know what, run it back. Also, I just think they've earned it. They're more fun to watch. I like the physical brand of hockey. They push right up to the line. And sure, they've crossed it at other points during the playoffs, but this series, I feel like from what I've seen, they've gone right up to the line, but just stayed in the bounds of reason, or willingly enough that I'd be fine backing them. Their energy, their attitude. I gotta say, Brad Marchand is always so much fun to watch and to be able to
Truly
root for. So that's plenty for me. Also, fuck Corey Perry so much. Like I hate Corey Perry. Whether or not it's real, I believe in the Corey Perry curse, that he will make the final however many times in the last 10 years and not win a single one of them.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Well, here's the unfortunate part for Edmonton then, coming off of this game, is they're still in Florida. So can Edmonton recover? Do they come out here in game 4 tomorrow with perhaps a bit of a different attitude? And I mean, I know that's only game 3, but are we perhaps on our way to a Panthers back-to-back?
I do feel like that is going to be the case. It seems likely at this point when they got one in Edmonton. I mean, we'll see how this game 4 goes if Edmonton can get their heads on straight and give us another game, because with how close games 1 and 2 were, it could very much be a coin flip, but so could every other game. And we've seen one game in Florida and it was domination. We've seen 2 games in Edmonton and those are toss-ups. So it feels more likely that as this series wears on, that home ice advantage, even if the series is tied 2-2, it might not fall Edmonton's way. I feel like Florida's home ice is more powerful for them than it is in Edmonton.
Yeah. So I agree. I'm again, as a neutral observer, I'm really just interested to see how it plays out. Ultimately, do I have a bit of a lean towards the Panthers? Yes, I do. But again, my whole hope was that this series would be entertaining, and boy, oh boy, has it delivered on that. So if you're not watching the Stanley Cup Final because you're an Avs fan and Avs fan only, I understand, so am I, but this is some absolutely fantastic high-grade cinema hockey being played. I definitely think it is worth your time to watch, because we're about to enter the few-month period where there's no hockey being played, and I found myself, as I watch Avalanche highlights from this past season, heavily yearning for Avalanche hockey and more hockey just in general. So it's tough, so I'll take it wherever I can get it. It's like my little heroin fix for the week. So that was bad. That was bad. I'm sorry, everybody. But I do miss hockey, so take it where you can get it. And this series has been great. I think it's definitely worth your time to watch, really, is what I'm saying.
Certainly is, and listen, man, it's a way healthier and cheaper addiction that you've got with hockey. So you're doing great in my book.
Thank you, Dom. Well, lastly, my thing was I saw a fan think of that there may be an Avalanche prophecy, because of course I got to find a way to bring the Avalanche into this, is that the Tampa Bay Lightning went to 3 back-to-back Stanley Cup Finals, and when they were on the cusp of a three-peat, the Avalanche came in and slayed the dragon. Could the Avalanche perhaps be poised to do the same against the Florida Panthers next year?
Poised, yeah. The Avalanche roster, I think, is going to be set up really great for the coming year, and they're gonna be ready to go on a deeper run, especially if Dallas is going to have a regression and feel a bit more beatable from the start. So poised, yes. I think it's a little interesting because with Tampa, they won the first 2, lost the third, and with Florida, they would have lost the first one and potentially won 2 and 3. I wonder if the run of Florida teams comes to an end altogether, because we do have a little mirror image, a balance there of some symmetry, if you will. So, I wonder if, especially with the cup tax going to be pretty heavy and a lot of Eastern teams, especially Carolina, is going to have the cap to make a push. I wonder if the run of Florida comes to an end for the first time in 6 years.
I really can't say. And I mean, especially if they find a way to retain Bennett, Ekblad, and especially Marchand, it would be hard for me to believe that they wouldn't just run it back again next year, because it just doesn't feel like anybody can beat these guys. And I mean, in all fairness, the only other team that got a crack at it was the Vegas Golden Knights, but that was not as good of a Florida team then. And then they came back the next year and just shit on everyone. So I'd be interested to see maybe another team be able to take a crack at them. And I mean, like I've told you, I've wanted a crack at this version of the Edmonton Oilers for the last few years, and we just haven't gotten that opportunity. Instead, we just get to watch Dallas losing 5 games for the last 2 years to the Edmonton Oilers. Like, it's frustrating. It's frustrating because I want the Avs to make a deeper run. I'd love to see how the Avalanche do against some of these other teams, but all we get to see is them beat Winnipeg or Dallas every fucking year.
Yeah, and I think next season would be a great opportunity to see them have a chance to run at Edmonton, because I do think Winnipeg will still probably be in the similar spot. Minnesota will probably still be in the similar spot. Dallas, like we said, will be in a similar spot, possible regression. So I think the Avalanche can can beat 2 out of those 3 teams and be able to meet an Oilers team in the third round, because I don't know, this felt like the Kings year, so I don't know if we're talking about the Kings next year or if it's the Ducks in their place. Vegas just doesn't seem the same as they did a couple years ago. We'll see if they bounce back, but I do feel like the Avs could beat those Pacific teams, whoever it would be if they got to them in that third round. So we shall see, but I love the thought. I think it could be an interesting thing to have the Avalanche be the world beaters that end Florida dominance in both cases. But again, I just wonder how long it can continue, because I don't think they'll have a problem retaining Marchand. He is prone to taking team-friendly deals near the end of his career. It'll be easy. I don't see a universe where they keep both Ekblad and Bennett. I just don't see that happening. They're going to lose at least one of them. Now, that's not the end of the world. It's one player, and they can still retain the other. Thank you for the cap going up. The Florida Panthers are going to be very grateful for that. But I just still wonder, the cup tax of back-to-back championships. These guys, they should be asking for more money, and not all of them are going to take team deals, especially Bennett shouldn't, when this is going to be his one shot to make a lot more, because it's not just talking like $1 million difference on a team friendly deal. We're talking $2 to $3 million less he would have to take probably to stay in Florida.
Certainly so. Well, before we move on to our normal fun fact, here's a fun fact for you. In 2019, the Oilers could have hired Bill Zito to be their GM, but instead chose to hire Ken Holland. For those who don't know who Bill Zito is the current general manager of the Florida Panthers. You think the Oilers would have had a couple cups by now, Dom?
With the amount of talent on that roster, I do think that it would be possible that they could have filled the holes a bit better than they have. I mean, they haven't done a bad job clearly making it to back-to-back cups, but if you have back-to-back losses in the cup, is really not that much different than what we've seen with Canada or Dallas falling short, even if they're consistently making deep playoff runs.
Anyway, Dom, that's all I had to say about the current Stanley Cup playoffs. I can't wait to talk about more next week now that you're back in town, so we can maybe bounce some more ideas off of. But unless you have anything else to say, I'm ready to move on to today's fun facts.
Yeah, please take us away.
Well, today, I thought it would be fun to pull some lightning round fun facts that have come out of this year's Stanley Cup Finals, as there's been really multiple fun ones. So, here we go. Deep breath, everyone. Paul Maurice has hit 1,000 career wins. Brad Marchand is the first NHL player in NHL history to score an overtime goal and then the opening minute goal in the following game of the Stanley Cup Finals. Brad Marchand at 37 is the oldest player to score in the first 3 games of the Stanley Cup Final, previously held by 35-year-old Frank Mahovlich in 1973 with Montreal. Corey Perry has scored in every Stanley Cup Final he's played in, which I believe is now up to 6. Sergei Bobrovsky became the first goaltender on record to post back-to-back 40-save performances to begin a Stanley Cup Final. Brad Marchand scored both a shorthanded goal and an OT game winner in the same game. Corey Perry scored the latest tying goal in Stanley Cup Final history in 1942 of period 3, beating the previous record from Todd Sloan in 1951 at 19 minutes and 28 seconds of period 3. Evan Bouchard is the first defenseman in Stanley Cup Final history with multiple 3-point periods and only one of 4 players to ever achieve that feat. Connor McDavid became the 3rd player in NHL history with at least 3 career 30-point postseasons. Leon Draisaitl is the 3rd player in NHL history to score 10-plus goals in 3 consecutive postseasons. The names Connor, Seth, and Trent are names that have never appeared on the Stanley Cup. Corey Perry is old and is the oldest player in this year's Stanley Cup Final. Sam Reinhart is a bed fiend, and Brad Marchand still loves Dairy Queen.
The way that ended, wow! And you just said Corey Perry is old, so a lot of fun ones in there.
40 years old, and bless his heart, he's still trying. Good luck, Grandpa. Well, everyone, the clock is counting down to the final horn. We really appreciate you taking. Who am I? Let's try that again. The clock is counting down to the final horn. We really appreciate you taking the time to listen to this episode of the Captain Avalanche Fancast. Did you know there is a comment section where you can leave your thoughts and questions? If you have something you want to know about the Avalanche, Sharks, or just hockey in general, leave it below and we'll be happy to try and answer it. There is also a unique poll for you to interact with every episode. The best thing you can do if you like what we're doing here is to follow us on whatever platform you're using and share this podcast everywhere you can, whether it's with your mouse or your mouth. We're still at 17 followers. Please get us to 20 followers on Spotify. And if you're using something else, hit follow on that too. We would greatly appreciate it. It would mean a lot. Even in our first season, you think 20 is small, maybe to you, but to us, it would be massive. So please hit that follow button on whatever platform you're using. Follow, subscribe, whatever. I'm Captain Avalanche Corey.
And this is Dom from the Tank.
Check out our new episodes every week. Thanks, everyone.